Good day everyone, I am Karen Joy A. Kirit, a Bachelor of Elementary Education second year student. In this video, I will be discussing about some of the steps on Assure model which are utilize media and materials, require learner participation, and lastly evaluate and revise. But before we proceed to those, let us first have a recall on what is Assure model. Alright, so Assure is an instructional design model that has the goal of producing more effective teaching and learning. The Assure model emphasizes learning where students are required to interact with their environment as fully engaged participants in the learning process. Assure model involves interactive, experiential activities whereby the learners have direct contact with objects, events, and/or other learners. Students gain meaning and understanding by direct interaction and by building a previous knowledge. Assure is an acronym that stands for the various steps in the model. The following is a breakdown of each step. Analyze learners, state objectives, select methods, media and materials, utilize media and materials, require participation, and lastly, evaluate and revise. In this video, I will focus on discussing about the utilize media and materials, require participation, and lastly, evaluate and revise. Let's tackle first the utilize media and materials. This step in the Assure process concerns making a plan as to how you will utilize the technology, media, and materials that you have selected. As with all the instructional steps, you must make sure that your plans contribute towards producing the objectives that you have laid down. It's important to follow the 5 P's process to achieve this. First, preview the technology, media, and materials. Second, prepare the technology, media, and materials. Third, prepare the environment. Fourth, prepare the learners. And lastly, fifth, provide the learning experience. So when we say preview the technology, media, and materials, this means that it's important to plan ahead of time just how you're going to use them. It's good to do a dry run of your lesson before you actually teach it, making sure that the whole lesson will go smoothly and seamlessly. Next is prepare the technology, media, and materials. So you need to gather together all those things that you will need to teach your lesson. You should make sure that it must be working properly. For example, if you are making a PowerPoint presentation, then you'll need to create the text and graphics for each screen. Another P is prepare the environment. There is some minimal preparation required to set up the learning environment. Simple things like making sure that you have enough desks are important. Also, if you have control over the situation, you should make sure that there are no sources of noise that will disturb the students. Next one is prepare the learners. In preparing learners, first, you need to clearly inform the learners as to what the learning objectives are. This will help the learners to create a mental map of what they need to absorb. Next, it's important to tell the students how they will be assessed. You need to tell them what their assignments will be, how they will be graded, if there are tests, and etc. Also, you should explain to the students what the benefits of learning the material are. The last P is provide the learning experience. So when providing learners with learning experience, you then actually carry out the lesson. This is where all your planning takes effect. You should be prepared to carry out the lesson with every prior step of the process in mind. This will ensure your success as a teacher. Now, let's proceed to require participation. This step actually belongs within earlier steps. It requires that you make plans to how you are going to actively engage your students in the material that you are teaching. This needs to be figured out both at the class level and the individual level. The most basic step that you can take in requiring participation of the students in class discussions. A more sophisticated approach would require that students prepare questions and comments at home to bring into the class. You might try even allowing individual students to lead classes or discussions in the style of a seminar. Beyond this, you need to plan exactly how the students will participate in the learning process. Generally speaking, how will they learn the information and techniques included in a lesson? This plan needs to be more specific than just saying that they will listen and absorb the material. Maybe you will encourage a specific kind of note-taking or other learning strategies. Now, let's proceed to the last one, which is evaluate and revise. The final step in the assure process is just as crucial as all of the others. In this step, you evaluate the impact of your teaching on student learning. This includes an evaluation of your teaching strategies and the technology, media, and materials that you used. The following questions are useful to ask during this evaluation. Did your lesson meet the learning objectives that you planned? How will you determine whether the students reach the objectives? Is your way of assessing the students in line with your learning objectives? You need to ask those questions in order to be aware on what needs to be enhanced or changed. You should consider the learner's understanding on the lesson that you teach to them, whether they meet your desired result or not. More importantly, whether your objectives really assess the students' learnings. Can this lesson be improved? How? How are you going to assess the weaknesses in your presentation? You need to ask those questions in yourself in order to know what needs to be improved and taken into account. You should also know what to do for it to become more effective and interesting for the learners to grasp. Was your choice of media and materials a good one? How will you assess the effectiveness of these tools? You also need to ask those questions for the sake of your students. You have to be clear when using those media and materials so that you can ensure its effectiveness and how your learners can gain knowledge from it. Is it possible that other technologies, media, and materials would have done a better job? You need to also ask that question in order to do a better job or even the best. You need to consider various technologies, media, and materials for you to have better access, especially during your discussion or presentation. You need to be flexible enough in order to meet the students' never-ending curiosity on various things. Moreover, as a teacher, you must consider your learner's situation, whether they learned something from you or you need to exert more effort on improving your teaching strategy. The final step in your evaluation should focus on feedback from your students. Was their experience positive overall? Do they feel that they have reached your objectives and their own personal objectives? How will you determine whether or not your performance was effective? It is really important to evaluate your students in order to know whether they understand the lesson or not. Evaluation is significant because it serves as the learner's understanding on the lesson. In conclusion, the assure process is really just a matter of common sense. However, it is good to follow a regimented guide to improve your teaching technique. Any effective teacher knows that the perfection of their technique does not come overnight, and there is always room for improvement. By following the assure process, you will be sure to improve your teaching for many years to come. That's it for today's video, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something from it. See you again next time. Bye!